Hey everyone, John Kennedy here with Above Board. And entrepreneurs can get stuck at every stage of growth. And our guest today, Lynn Tickner, loves to help get them unstuck. Her creative agency, Ink and Key, helps entrepreneurs start with a great name for their idea and then turn that idea into a thriving business. And I can speak from experience on this topic as Lynn and her team have had a great impact on the name Candor Path, which I think we'll get into here in a moment. She is also a StoryBrand Certified guide. Lynn uses the power of story to help brands uncomplicate their message, create marketing that works, and reach their ideal clients. Lynn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, John. It's so fun to be here.
I've been wanting to have you on the show for a while, and so I'm glad that you agreed to coming on with us. And I think a fun place to start is the story about. I mean, you helped us come up with the name Canterpath Financial. Maybe we should start there, and just kind of like how you help businesses do that idea creation and all that creative stuff.
Yeah, well, it kind of goes back to helping people get unstuck.
Yeah,
I'm a problem solver at heart, and I have my background is actually in teaching. I have a master's in early childhood education, and so I always love to take complicated things and make them simple.
yeah,
Right, starting with little kids, that's kind of what I learned to do is explain things and teach things in a way that it makes sense. And so um, it kind of my answer to your question goes a little bit into my backstory of how I started my business, but I was literally trying to make ends meet. I was a stay-home mom, homeschooling my kids, and literally trying to pay bills and put groceries on the table and things like that. And so I started um, trying to make extra money by joining naming contests.
sure,
And I took part in these naming contests and noticed some problems. And I'm not going to name names because all these brands are great and they do a good job, the ones that run naming contests. But just as a participant, I noticed some problems and I was
sure.
like, I can fix this. And so I had some people that are still on my naming team to this day that were so supportive, two ladies in particular. And I was like, hey, what do you guys think? If I could do this, we could do a contest together. What do you think? And they're like, do it. And that's kind of where a lot of this stuff started is I just was like, well, let's just try this because, it all came down to communication and making sure that, and maybe if people who are listening don't understand what's a naming contest, I might want to throw that in too. Just if like you were, John, you wanted to start this business,
Hmm.
but you got stuck when it came
Yeah,
to, it's like, what do we name this
yeah,
thing? And then
yeah.
you look up all the names that are out there, they're taken, they're being used. What do?
Yep.
You get stuck, right? It's hard. Naming is hard. And so some business owners will go to some different websites that have platforms that run contests and they'll say, they'll write up a little brief, they'll fill out a form, and then
Hmm.
just people from all over the world, that are trying to make an extra buck, which I have no problem with that. I was doing the same thing. They go in and they suggest naming ideas. And if the business owner who's running the contest picks their idea, they win a prize. They might win $200 or $300 or something like that.
Yeah,
And I was doing this and I was like, oh, I'm doing okay. I was winning quite a few contests and it was really helpful to us financially. But I noticed that, I was, I was there to make some money, but I also really wanted to help these business owners because I'm a helper. I'm an Enneagram 2. I really wanted to do a great job. So I worked hard on my name ideas and it was frustrating if I never got any feedback, or if I never heard from that business owner. And a lot of times there was no way to really talk to them and ask
yeah,
them the questions I wanted to ask. And that's where I was like, I can fix this. So I
yeah.
created what I called the mini crowdsourcing experience, which it's not really crowdsourcing, but I pulled together a team of people. And at this point, 6.5 years later, I have an 18-person naming team. So it's a closed group of people.
Yeah.
They're my people, they're my family, and we're all in it together to help business owners create a great name. So you get that group of people that are diverse, that have different approaches to naming, right? And you worked with them.
Yeah.
Um,
Well,
and
I was gonna brag on you for a second in that regard. So you said the term crowdsourcing, which is what it is. Like if you Google, and I'll name names because I don't care. Like 99 Designs is a big one. Like you Google some of these companies, And I felt like, well, that just falls short for what we were trying to achieve, of just, filling out a short questionnaire and then getting uh, 500 names to then dissect and figure out. And so, for us, especially like financial planning, we're creative in different ways, but we're not typically
Mhm.
known to be creative when it comes to marketing, branding, and coming up with a company name. And I can remember Matt and I sitting around going, "What are we going to name this thing?" And just like we had a bunch of ideas, but we knew that we needed help. And so, what was cool about this was I started Googling like this experience, crowdsourcing, coming up with names, and I came across Ink and Key. And I feel like it was actually your name of your company that like I was like, Ink and Key, what? And then I went to the website, I'm like, wow, this is cool. And then I had an intro call with you. I don't know if I mean, you do this all the time, so you might not remember this. I remember this vividly because it was my experience. But I had this great call with you. It was like 30 minutes. I'm like, okay, this is the way we're gonna do it. And you're right, you don't have 100 different, 100 plus personalities trying to come up with a name. You had, I mean, at the time, maybe there was like 10 or 12. I know you said it's 18 now, but you had this team. And I knew, I'm like, that's enough creatives and diverse personalities that we can help collaborate. And you had me go through this exercise of sending videos to everybody and kind of explaining our vision and what we're excited about and what we do. And I really felt integrated in, like, I felt like your team and yourself really understood where we were coming from, and it came out to what I love as the end result, which is Canter Path Financial. 5 years later, that's the name of the company. And it's fun creating brand awareness around that, something that means something so much to you, and you help people do that. I mean, so cool, so
I
cool.
love that. I love
Yeah.
Candor Path, too. I think that is just a fantastic name, and it's just a great example of how you can stand out in your industry with a unique name.
Yeah. Well, I have the top 5 list of all the names, and I look back at it probably every so often, like once a year, and I'll send it to Matt, and I'm like, "Hey, man, check out these. They're still cool names." I'm like, I want to buy the URLs so that we could keep these names. They're so cool. But no, I think that was such a great introduction to working with you. But Lynn, you do so many things in working with and coaching business owners. Can we talk a little bit about uh, your evolution to getting into this area of helping working with business owners? You started your business at 49, and
Yep.
in 2016, you started your business and really worked through a lot of challenges to get to where you are today. Can we share, to the degree in which you're comfortable with, share your story a little bit for listeners, because I think that's really inspiring.
Yeah, well, I hope it is. And I mean, one of the biggest lessons is it's never too late. If you have a dream, if you have an idea for something and you think, oh, I've heard people talk about, oh, I'm so old, I'm 40. I'm like, come on, I'm 55. I'm just getting started. But I mean, with age comes wisdom. You've had time to deal with a lot of your baggage in your life.
Yeah.
And for me, it was getting out of a 28-year marriage
Hmm.
that was not good for me or my kids. And, everything kind of worked together for good. To throw a little Bible verse in there, Romans 8:28. But I was, struggling financially. And before I, separated from my husband and started moving towards changing my life, is when I came up with this idea for Ink and Key. I was already doing some copywriting. I was just doing whatever I could to make ends meet. So I was homeschooling my kids, and, they were getting older. So I had time to. I was doing marketing copywriting for actually a financial services company in Los Angeles.
I
I
didn't know
wrote
that.
white papers for them, and it was really funny how the engagement started. I can't remember how they found me online because I didn't have my website yet, um, or Ink and Key wasn't even a thing. But they were like, "Hey, can you write some white papers for us?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And then I go to Google, and I'm like, "What is a white paper?" But yes, I did.
Say
And
yes and figure it out later, right?
that's right. Absolutely. And so, yeah, I wrote them a series of, like, I don't know, at least 6 white papers on different, topics about investments. Did I know anything about that? Absolutely not. But I learned and I researched and I used my skills, I think, from my educational background to take these complicated topics and
Mhm.
make them simple so that, I try to write on like third or fourth grade level, even about complicated topics, because those are the kind of things that help people pay attention is if
Yeah.
they can follow it and it makes sense. So a little bit off topic, but yeah.
Well, no, I mean, you're speaking my language because I think the world of finance can be both complicated and boring as all get out. So, going into a meeting and talking to somebody about the economic update and the inverse relationship between bonds and interest rates, that's not exciting. And
Right.
you got to find a way to make that not only interesting but digestible and understandable. And I've always said, when we end a meeting with somebody, my goal is for them to have learned something from it. By the time they come out of that meeting, they've learned something, and we've taken something complicated and made it simple. So, we align very much, and that speaks a lot with what we do. I feel like honestly, the majority of my job is specifically
Hmm.
that right there. Um, I want to go back to uh, the evolution and journey of you starting your own company in 2016. I mean, one of the things that you had mentioned in the pre-call that I thought was really powerful was that, just like in your journey to self-empowerment, you learned about yourself that you can do major things. Like you can do big things like starting a company, and doing what you love. What just kind of share with the listeners, like what is um gosh, how do you get to that point, or is it like this self confidence build of finally realizing, like, hold on, I'm done doing everything for other people, I'm done working for another company, like I'm going to start my own thing. You just like shed a little bit of light on your journey there.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'd already mentioned, just my idea of
Hmm.
of hey, I could run naming contests and I could actually let the people that are creating the names communicate with the people who need the names. Oops.
Yeah.
Um, and kind of break through that wall of communication that I felt like was really holding a lot of business owners back from getting a great name and holding the
Yeah.
namers back, the creatives, from creating better names and taking the names they've already created and working on them to fine tune them so they're just right. And so, with the encouragement of a couple of people, which this is a little life lesson too, is get people around you who will cheer you on, who will
Yeah.
support you. It's so big. And I mean, and these two ladies, I met them online from, they were also doing naming contests, and they're both still on my naming team to this day. They're awesome. And they were like, do it, do it. I'm like, okay. Cause I was kind of thinking, well, if it's just three of us in a contest, then we can just split the money every time. Wouldn't that be awesome?
Smart.
And so,
Wow. Okay.
I literally built the ugliest website you have ever seen. Oh my goodness. It was so bad, but I did it because, what are you going to do? So I just started. That's another lesson. Just get started. It's not going to be
Yeah.
perfect. You're going to keep changing things along the way, but just start, you
Oh,
know,
yeah. That's so
just
true.
start. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
instead of taking the perfect step in the right direction, take an imperfect stride. Like just make that
mhm.
progress. And something that you said, this group of people that you had around you, these several others that were motivating you to do it. I mean, it was the same for me. Like when we started Canterpath, I had heard this quote. It was Tim Ferriss. Actually, no, it was Tim. It was on a Tim Ferriss episode. I think it's a Jim Rohn quote, and it's, "You're the average of the five people that you spend the majority of your time with."
Mm.
And sometimes like you read a book and you take one sentence away or one paragraph away, or you hear somebody take one thing away. And that was mine. I went home, I wrote down that list, and I'm like, I got to come up with a better five. And as soon as I started doing that, I found that I was surrounding myself with more positive people, and those people were doing exactly what you described, which is encouraging you. And you need that support system around you. And now fast forward to 2023, and you're coaching people, you're helping other business owners, you're part of someone else's support system, which I think is so incredible. And let's talk a little bit about that, because I know you had mentioned Clifton Strengths, and some of the different coaching that you do. Can you touch on what Clifton Strengths is? Because when you mentioned it to me, I was like, I recognize that, And it's like the Strength Finders was like the original idea of that, and it's evolved over time, right?
Yep. Yeah, yes. A lot of people will know it as Strengths Finder or Clifton
That's
Strengths.
it.
And
Yep.
I think I wrote down the name of the guy, Dr. Don Clifton. So he
Hmm.
created this stuff 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And so there's 34 strengths, and they are in four categories: executing, influencing, relationship building, and strategic thinking. And so, and the reason I know all this is I have a good friend. Dana Williams, who is a Clifton Strengths coach. And so she has really helped me figure some of this stuff out. So, what's interesting is that my top strength is empathy.
Okay.
And my top five strengths are all in the relationship building category, which people that know me are kind of like, well, duh, you know. But I found out that my last one, which is kind of like your weakness, number 34 for me is discipline, which I thought was hilarious. I'm like, oh, that kind of explains a few things of why I struggle.
Do you
Like
look at do you look at those strengths, like when they're ranked like that? Do you look at something that is your weakness and say, okay, my job now is to find ways to improve that, or do you go lean harder into the strengths and say, these are my strengths, this is what I'm going to focus on?
that is such a good question. And I know when I first did it, I was like, oh no, I'm really bad in discipline. Like it felt like I was getting a failing grade. Like I
Yeah.
need to improve that. And what I learned is no, no, no. You don't you just you lean on your strengths. You lean on your top fives and you figure out how to use those to accomplish what you need to accomplish.
Hmm.
So it's just, what's interesting is like um, the chance that you and someone else are going to share the top five strengths in the same order are 1 in 33 million.
Wow.
So, isn't that interesting?
Jeez.
So, it just kind of shows how
Better
unique we
odds to win the
are.
lottery.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're unique. We're fearfully and wonderfully made and put together so well, so that once you really learn how to use your strengths, you can use them to your advantage. So what I learned was that one of the reasons why I started this whole business was because since empathy is my top strength, um, I wanted to help people with the same thing that I struggled with. What
Hmm.
did I struggle with? Starting a business, figuring out things as I went along. And I really, as I've walked through that and learned so much, I want to help other people do that. I want to help them get unstuck, start
Yeah.
things off on the right foot, the right way. Don't have to spend time and money undoing things or redoing things, but do it right the first time. Build a strong foundation for your business so that you can succeed faster and with more
Yeah.
efficiency.
Yeah, that's great, and I think some of the coaching stuff that we've talked about in the past. I shared with you. I mean, we have since the day we started Canterpath, we have a coach, and he's in the financial industry. His name's David DeSell. He's been on the show before, and we knew that not only because we had like a business partnership, but we just knew that we needed, even if we were solo, like we needed somebody to bounce ideas off of. And sometimes the three of us come into a joint session together, and we're Matt and I are just ping pong and stuff all around, and he looks at it as his role to sort of distill some of this, re-explain it how he hears it. And I can't emphasize enough how important that is, to have somebody be an advocate for you and help take something that's complicated and make it simple. Sometimes even just like the slightest change of the perspective can like hit that light bulb moment for you. And I mean, that's something that you do with business owners, correct? I mean, you're coaching them and working with them on what is a typical like what does a coaching session look like with you?
Yeah,
I know
well,
that's
a
a hard
lot of
question.
no, that's a very good question. I don't really think of myself as a coach, but I kind of am because I do
Sure.
love all the strategy. Even though my Clifton strengths don't show as much strategic, I lean on my relationship strengths to build that strategic part out, which is kind of
Yeah.
interesting how it all works together. But yeah, most of the time, a lot of business owners will come to me and they'll kind of want to come to a marketing fast food restaurant and say, I'd like a website with a side order of an email series, please. And it's like, okay, and so it's like when you go to the doctor, you don't tell the doctor what you want. You place an order,
Yep.
you let them diagnose. And so I love it if a business owner will allow me the honor of diagnosing, and maybe saying, let's, a lot of times people will say, I want to do this and this and this and spend all this money on ads to drive people to my website. And then I
Yeah.
go look at their website and I'm like, I think we have to fix that first before we spend a lot of money driving people over here. Because once they land on your site, they're going to jump off in a few seconds. And
Yeah.
so let's
Yeah.
work on your message. Let's make sure that your website doesn't confuse people. Let's make sure you're not hiding the cash register, meaning, there's no call to action button. Like people go into a store and they pick up something they want to buy, and then there's no cash register, you
We've learned
know?
that the hard way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
just, having a clear plan, having a clear message, that's what um, a coaching session looks like. Is I will not, like, if you were in a coaching session with me, I would not ask you a lot about yourself. I would try to
Yeah.
find out about these people that you serve. What
Sure.
are the problems they struggle with? How do those problems make them feel? What's the injustice that they struggle with that you're going to come in kind of like the superhero, dun, 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 and you're going to make it right? You're going to
Yeah.
right the wrong. You're going to, you know, we call that the philosophical problem in StoryBrand. It's just not right. It shouldn't be that hard to figure out a retirement plan that actually works,
Right.
those kind of things. And, what is the process of how you work with customers? What's step one, two, and three? Hopefully, three is the happy ending to the story, is that,
Yeah.
they can kind of foreshadow and look, oh, I can actually get there. What transformation do you help your customers go through? Those are the kind of questions I ask in a coaching session.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh, that's so great because honestly, I think most people either starting a business or already, ingrained, a few years into it, that is not, well, actually, really anybody. Like, I mean, that no matter where you are in the life cycle of starting a business, that typically is not someone's strength. Being able to articulate what they do, their why, how they help people, and why they love it, and then do it in a way that is, I don't know, understandable slash interesting. I mean, again, I liken it to my industry, where if you pulled up 100 financial planners websites, I would I would bet that 80 to 90% of their copy is loosely the same. And that was such an important exercise for us because we're looking at all these websites like, oh, this graphic looks cool and that looks cool, and but all the content was the same. And again, my industry full of people that are maybe creative on the financial planning side and helping someone talk through and digest their goals in life and things like that are probably not that creative in explaining and connecting back to their why. And they need somebody like you to really figure that part out. So I just think that that's so cool. And it's, I just want to give a nod to the fact that how we came across finding you, Ink and Key, was again just Google searching and finding your company. And we live nowhere near each other.
Yeah.
And yet we've worked together, we've stayed connected for the last 5 years. And now you're on the show. I mean, I think it's just so cool that there's not even geographical boundaries to work with someone. You don't need to live in that community anymore to find the best of the best and the person that can help you do that thing that you need, which I just think is so cool. So this is a lead into a two-part question. Do you find that you're able to effectively, well, I think I know the answer to this, but I want to hear you say it, effectively work with someone regardless of location? So if they're not present with you, that you can work with someone effectively. And two, are you feeling like you've developed a niche in working with a specific industry? And I got another follow-up question, but I'll start with those two.
Yeah, those are very good questions. Definitely a big yes to working with anyone in the world. In fact, just I have a couple of dear clients in Australia. One
Oh,
particular fellow was involved in, and I don't know exactly. It's something similar to a Department of Defense for Australia.
cool.
And they had this big tech product they needed a name for, that had to do with resolving conflict in large organizations. It was really interesting. And this was probably maybe a year after I started Ink and Key. He came to us for a name, and we just developed a relationship similar to how you and I have. And he still pops in every once in a while, just a LinkedIn direct message. Hi, how are you doing? And he's so kind. And he's kind of like, I'd be like big time in my opinion, as far as like who he is. And I'm like, I'm just me, whatever. But it's so nice to
That's
just,
like that's like that imposter syndrome though, because you
yeah,
are
right.
great and you do amazing work. But I think that sometimes too, when someone like reaches back out to me and I'm like, it's just me, like it's no big deal. But
Right.
that's imposter syndrome talking. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, good call. Yes, you're right. And so thank you for calling me out on that. I'm still working on that a little bit. But yeah, I mean, marketing is just, sometimes people think of marketing in a different way than they should. Like they
Sure.
might think of it as manipulative, or we're trying to just, or they think of sales as something that's bad, but it's really not. It's just, marketing is all about building relationships and
Yeah.
helping, the people that come to me. I help my clients build relationships as I'm building relationships with my clients. And it's all about, I had to come up with a sort of a mission statement for Ink and Key, and it's really simple. It's we help people help people. That's what we love
Yeah.
to do.
Yeah.
And and it's all about relationships. So it's and now you have to remind me the second part of your question because I rambled.
Well, yeah, I will. That I think that that's really important though, because I feel like sales, especially in my industry, but any industry, is for sure a dirty word. And it
Mhm.
doesn't need to be and it shouldn't be. If you can
Yeah.
connect your purpose, cause, and passion back to it, and it's ethical and it's moral and you're doing something for the betterment of somebody or helping somebody, that does not need to be a negative thing, because you're I this was part of a coaching session that we had with someone where the comment he made was, Matt and I said, well, this is with David, who I mentioned earlier. Matt and I said, like, hey, we're at a great place. We love our clients and we're growing via referrals. And, we're good with that. Like, that's where we want to live. And he said, you guys have a moral obligation to get the message out there about what you do to as many people as possible. Because what if the person that could or should know about you doesn't, because you didn't get your message out there, and that person goes to a bad financial planner who is pushing product for their own agenda and not for the betterment of that person. And you have a responsibility to get your message out there to people. And when I heard that, I was like, whoa. I mean, that made me view sales and marketing in a completely different light than I had ever thought of it before. And I just, it is important to change our mindset around that. The follow up question was, are you finding that you have a specific niche of folks that you work with, or is it just really anyone that's entrepreneurial spirited and growing a business?
Yeah, everyone says the riches are in the niches or niche, if you say it that
Ooh, I've
way.
never heard
And
that before.
as often as I have tried, I just can't limit myself in that way. And it's not because I think my niche is, if there was one, it would be naming. That's kind of that's the door that a lot of people come through.
Yeah.
What's fun is if they come and stay.
Yeah.
Um, and we love that. So we love to help people get unstuck with a name. And then if they stay with us, if they enjoy working with us, which is the goal, build that relationship, then we help them. For instance, there's a current client and we're just having so much fun with this. So this could be sort of a niche for us, as far as it's more about working with entrepreneurs to help them build a really strong brand so they can be profitable, they can achieve their dreams,
Yeah.
and help people. So this precious client came to us. She's so fun to work with, and she struggled with food allergies, and she um, uh, realized that when she traveled for work, she couldn't find the right thing she wanted to eat. And she always wished she had her blender with her, or her
Hmm.
whatever little devices she kept at home so she could make her own almond milk, because even store bought almond milk she could find had stuff in it that she couldn't eat. So she either had to do without or risk getting sick while she was traveling. So, a lot of times, what drives an idea, what drives entrepreneurs is problem solving, right? That's what drove me. So she was like, all right, I'm going to solve my own problem. I'm going to create a travel blender that I can take with me on trips. So she came up with this idea. It's the cutest, most adorable little blender. I should have it here and I could show you, but it's just the tiniest little thing. But it's like a juicer. It makes plant milk, almond milk. It's got a filter in it, and it's just like a regular blender to make smoothies. It's really cool. So she came
What's the
to us
name
for
of it?
a Nochi. There's
Okay.
no website yet. We're still working
Okay.
on it, but
Okay.
it's
Cool.
Nocci. Be on the lookout.
Okay.
So we named it Nochi, which is a word for nut. And so we have a little squirrel that's kind of like the mascot. We created the logo, all the product packaging. I had the best time in the world rewriting a um, originally written in Chinese instruction manual, which was so fun. And so all of the website copy is pretty humorous, which I love writing with a little touch of that, just kind of fun
Hmm.
copywriting. And so we've just taken this brand, this idea, and we've named it. We've created all the visual branding for it, all the
Cool.
packaging, the website copy, and she's just finishing up with some product photography and videos, and so, probably within the next month or so, the website will be launched, and it's really exciting. So that's, just it's such a privilege and an honor to name something, but how much more so to actually see that name turn into um, the product and see it come to life and then see this entrepreneur succeed. That's so rewarding and so fun.
I can feel the enthusiasm and I can see the joy on your face while you're talking about it. And so it's just it is so authentic and I mean I can just tell how much you love what you do. Something
Yeah.
we talk a lot about, and we actually did a podcast on this maybe 4 or 5 episodes ago, and it was called Efforts of Impact. And it really the basic concept and something we talk about internally on the team a lot is what's more impactful, sending an email or picking up the phone and calling somebody. What's
Mm.
more impactful, shooting them a quick text message or sending them a video explaining the same thing or an audio text explaining the same thing, going
Yeah.
basically one step further. And I think when you can connect to your purpose, cause, and passion and you find joy in what you do, efforts of impact is easy. And it
Mm.
is for you, Lynn. I mean, I from the first conversation we had together, I know that I can remember the collaborative process in working with your team to come up with a name and getting videos back from some of your team sort of explaining why they like this idea or this name and what I thought about it. And that easily could have just been a quick message. Here's the name that I came up with, period. See ya. Let me know what you think. And it
Right.
wasn't. It was the whole inspiration behind it. And again, I think when you love what you do, that the efforts of impact side is easy. And it's part of the reason we've stayed connected all these years,
Yeah.
like I mean, tagging on LinkedIn and social media, and you clearly have such a passion for what you do. And I know that coach may be kind of a weird term, but I do think that you help people, you motivate people, you inspire people, and on the financial planning realm, I've never really used the term that I'm a financial coach, but in essence, I am. I mean, that's kind of
Hmm.
what it is, what we do, and I would liken that similar to what you do on the marketing and branding side for an entrepreneur. Um, and I've mentioned a couple times now that we have a coach, and we talked a little bit about this. Like the comment that I made was, "Coaches need coaches."
Yes.
Um, and talk to me a little bit about this is just kind of a fun tangent, but you had mentioned the Female Founders Talk Shop.
Yes.
Can we talk about that at all? That just sounds
Sure.
fun. So I wanted to mention that and some of the good things that you're doing there.
Yeah, I mean, part of the joy for me of being a StoryBrand certified guide is that involves a community. And so,
Yep.
when you get certified as a guide, all that means is just that I am certified to use this narrative framework that Donald Miller
Understood.
came up with, that's based in brain science. It's really fun. Um,
Yeah. And Donald
but
Donald Miller is huge, by the way. You
yeah,
sent you sent me his book, and I had known of him, and then I started listening to podcasts and hearing more about him, and it was like, whoa, this is massive.
he is one smart guy for
Yeah.
sure. And so, as becoming part of this community has just, My top 5 strengths are relationship building. So I have been able to meet so many amazing people from all over the world that are also story brand guides and get connected to a lot of really fascinating female founders who started their business. Everybody's got their own story, which of course I'm really interested in. And so several of us got together and it kind of started on Clubhouse.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and and I thought, gosh, that's intimidating to sit there and talk, in this group of women. And who wants to listen to me? Again, imposter syndrome. Working on that.
Definitely. Yep.
But
Definitely
so we
is.
kind of created it for Clubhouse and have since, we're not really on Clubhouse anymore, but we have created a community of female founders. And we've started a Friday coffee chat once a month where two female founders lead it. And we talk about different things. Like money mindset and some other topics. But what's different about us is everything that we're doing is based on a research study that we've
Oh.
conducted, which has been super interesting. And so, Catherine Brown, who is a superstar when it comes to sales, she is an author of a fantastic book on sales called How Good Humans Sell. I recognize, I recognize, I recommend that you go buy that if you don't have it. How Good
Yeah.
Humans
I just
Sell.
wrote
It's
that down.
fantastic. She's a good human, and the way she teaches on sales is so different. But anyway, Catherine's husband is a research guru. Um, and so he helped us put together an actual real life research study for women entrepreneurs and women founders to find out what are the areas that they struggle in. And so that's kind of the driving force, is to try to help other female founders like ourselves work through some of the things we struggle with, provide that community, provide resources so we can help each other. Yeah. So
That's really cool. What were just out of curiosity, what were some of the findings, I guess, from the study, or some of the things that you guys are talking about as far as trying to build each other up? And you had mentioned like certain areas that female founders and leaders struggle with. What did that look like?
yeah, so much of it has to do, I mean, it either usually has to do with time or
Yeah.
money. I
Okay.
don't have enough time to do what I need to do, or, the fear of investing in
Yeah.
yourself or having someone else come, an outsider come and invest in your company. And
Interesting.
then so much is money mindset. It's not really about not having enough money, but it's about your mindset around money. And
Yeah.
so to me, that feels like the root problem. And I am um, not like, basically what I say is I don't speak spreadsheets.
Sure.
So I'm not the data person in the group, but uh, I can get you that information later, but I'm not great at talking about all of the detail when it comes to the data, but I can
Yeah.
talk about the feeling behind it,
I love it. Well, whereas this is hard, this is difficult for me, but I could live in a spreadsheet all day long. I love
Right.
spreadsheets, so totally get it.
Yep.
Um, no, I share commonality with some of those challenges too, and I think a lot of people like the money mindset stuff. I mean, that is rooted from a very young age. Where a lot, we've talked about this in the show a lot, kind of having like more of a scarcity point of view
Yeah.
or mindset, versus a mindset of abundance, which is a whole nother, we could do a whole nother podcast, you and I, on that. But
Totally.
I think that's absolutely a big deal. Lynn, any parting thoughts of wisdom that you'd like to share with the listeners of our show?
I mean, gosh. If you're a financial planner, I would say go check your website.
Yeah.
I would
I'm gonna
say,
go do that now.
yeah, I would just say make sure that you're not talking too much about yourself, because
Yeah.
when people hear story and story brand, they think, oh, I get to go tell my story. And it's like, no, it's not about you. It's
Yeah.
about your customer, it's about the people you
Yeah.
serve. So make sure that the words on your website speak directly to the people who are reading your website, and don't talk about all your features. Talk about,
I
the
I feel like,
outcomes.
did I get this from you? I might have, but we've talked a lot about this internally. Don't be the hero of the story.
Yes.
And for all the reasons that you just said, I mean, from our point of view, we're very much trying to create a team based ensemble approach to financial planning, because I don't feel like one person can effectively do all things finance. I think that that's very difficult. There are so many
Mm-hmm.
areas of financial planning. Matt is our enrolled agent with the IRS, very heavy on the tax side. Michael on our team is very heavy on the investment planning side, and we leverage each other's time and talent in that way. And not only within the team, I'm trying to give credit and kudos to other members of the team, because I'm not the hero of the story, but also the customer, the client. They don't want to hear you coming in and saving the day. You shouldn't be the hero of the story, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, that's the whole premise behind Donald Miller's book, Building a Story Brand, is that
Okay, I did
every
get it
good
from you guys.
story has a hero and a guide. And the mistake that most business owners make is they position themselves as the hero of the story. Like if you think about Star Wars, you've got Luke Skywalker. He is a mess at the beginning of the story. He's a loner. He's out here on this planet just doing stuff. And, by the end of the story, he's undergone this huge transformation. And by golly, he's a Jedi. How did he get there? A guide. And so you can be Yoda, Team Yoda or Team Obi-Wan, but one of those guys, he had a guide to take him from, the beginning where he was a mess to a Jedi. So he went through a transformation with the help of a guide. So business owners need to position themselves as the guide and not the hero, because this is the big thing, I think, and a good takeaway is that, I'm the hero of my own story. You're the
Mhm.
hero of yours. Everything I see in life, I kind of view through this lens. I'm the hero of my story. I'm walking through my story. If I go onto your website, you're the hero. You can't have two heroes in the same story. It doesn't work. Like with
Mm.
narrative theory, it doesn't work. And when there are two heroes in a story, it creates dissonance. Boop, I'm going to bounce off that website because I'm looking for a guide. I'm a hero that has a problem that needs to be solved, and I'm looking for a guide. So just make sure, that you position yourselves as the guide in this story and that you understand the problem that your hero is struggling with, and that you help them associate you and your brand with the solution to the problem that they're struggling
That's incredible. That is
with.
awesome. Wow. What a great way to wrap up the show. Lynn, such a fun time talking with you, and thank you for sharing your story. I don't often go in and re-listen to episodes after we record them, but I think this is going to be one of the shows that I do that. Um, Especially just how we ended. We could do a whole nother show on the last couple of topics that we talked about. So
Yeah,
there's
so
so much
fun.
usefulness to come from this episode. Lynn, before I let you go, how can listeners to the show find you? What's the best way to find you on social media?
Yeah, well, you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active on there. Just my name, Lynn Tickner, and you can go to my website, inkandkey.com, inkandkey.com, and it's pretty fast to schedule a call with me, and I do free 15-minute calls all day if you just want to chat about your website or just say hello. I would love that.
Love it. Well, we'll tag that in the show notes so people can just go straight to the link. As always, everyone, thank you for listening to Above Board with Canterpath. We love these conversations and we love our listeners. If you'd like more bite-sized chunks of these discussions, head over to canterpath365.com, where you can listen to 60 to 90 second market minute updates or clips of this show on your Amazon Alexa. We hope you have a great day, and we'll see you next week. Bye.